Good day, my wonderful people. You're welcome back to the channel. This is You Glow Fashion, and thank you so much for stopping by. Today I'll be showing you how to make this plunged neck prom dress. This is the sequence fabric I'll be using for the tutorial. Also, I'll be using tappeta and the normal aba lining, EST, and also wording. At first, I drew the pattern on my pattern paper. I first sketch out the skirt side. So the half length of the skirt is 16 inches minus half. The reason for subtracting the half is the half inch will be used to stitch both the upper bodies and the skirt together. So I went ahead to measure from that point. I measured the hip length. I determined the hip on 24 inches, while the knee length was determined on 34 inches. And the length of the length of the gown is 58 inches. I subtracted the upper bodies, which I said is 16 inches. So the skirt will start from the 16 inches, but instead of starting it on 16 inches, I subtracted half from it. The half, like I mentioned earlier, will be used for stitching the upper bodies and the skirt together. Then after that, I measured the circumference of the half length here. The circumference is divided by 4. I also measured the hip circumference divided by 4 also. The hip is 36 inches divided by 4. So for the nail length, I'll just minus 4 from the hip, which will give me 32 inches. So it is that 32 inches that I will divide by 4. Let me explain again. I subtracted 4 inches from the hip. That's because I want the shape at the nail length to be lovely, to have this fish shape. So dividing it, subtracting 4 from it will give it that shape. Then I later subtracted it again by 4. So now you can see the outcome. If you want yours to be more tiny, you can subtract close to 5 or 6, but you may not be able to lift your laps well or legs well. So whatever I have at the nail length, I transfer it to the hem line. Now for this down, because I used my pattern paper, I ought to have joined to it, but if you are doing yours, you can make the back side longer. Actually, this is the front side, so when we get to the back side, I will explain that. The length of the gown, like I mentioned earlier, is 58. So from that hem line, whatever I have there, I extended it with 5 inches. So that's how I was able to come about this slant shape. I extended the circumference of the nail length by 5 inches at the hem line. So I wrote here allowance. That's the seam allowance of 2 inches that I added. And at the hem, where the allowance is, I measure 1 inch up and I curve it out. I later placed the front body's pattern on the remaining paper. You can see what I explained earlier. I placed it on the pattern paper to measure the back piece. So for the back, I said you can extend the hem line with like 5 inches to make it longer. If you want it to flow well, you can do that. So for the front, after placing it, you can see the way I turned it. That's the middle, where the zipper is usually fixed. at the back. So, and at the middle I extended it by 5 inches. This is the nail length, the hip side. I just try to drill back the lines. After drawing back the lines, I trace out all the shape, the necessary shape at the front. I traced it out on the back bodies. So I later removed the front pattern. Now to work on the back, from the nail length again, you know this is the middle, this is where the zipper is usually fixed. So I traced it to the 5 inches I measured at the hem line. And at the nail length again, I later measured 1 inch in at the nail length. So the 1 inch, I connected it back to the hip side this way. This is just to help the boot side, to help the both side. Then I later reconnected it to the 5 inch. So this is the correct one. So for the zipper allowance, I measured 2 inches up here at the half length, then connect it to the hip length. So that's that for the back side. This will give the board shape like I measured earlier. So you can see how it is now. Now I turned it so you can see it properly. So the next thing is to place it on my fabric and cut it out. This is the upper bodies, which is the bustier and the plunge neck. So that's the shoulder to the chest line, then to the hip nipple point, and also the half length, the under bust, the half length. The circumference of the nipple point, which is the bust, is 32 inches divided by 4. You know, every other bodies is usually divided by 4 aside from the shoulder. And also the nail and the under bust, the half length, I divided everything by 4 and added 2 inches for seam allowance. So whatever I have at the nipple point, I transferred it to the chest line, then I added 1 inch to that to give me the slant shape, and also I added seam allowance to the chest line as well. The circumference of the shoulder, like I said earlier, is usually divided by 2. So the shoulder is 14 inches divided by 2 will give 7 inches. So from that point, I came down with, I just measured my straight line to connect it back to the chest line. Then from there also I measured 4.5 inches, and here at this angle I measured 1 inch in. So I connected everything together. At the 4 inch I came out with half inch and connected the lines together. That's for the armhole. Now for the bustier, I divided the nipple to nipple span which is 7 inches divided by 2, that's 3.5 inches. So 3.5 inches, I measured it from the half length back to the nipple point, so that's where it ends. At least that's where our bust ends, the nipple point. Now at the half length again, I measured 2 inches after the nipple to nipple span. So now I've divided the front into two. We have this side and the other side, which is the middle side, and the I don't know how to call it, the other side. Yeah. Now from the 2 inches, the middle side, which is the nipple to nipple, will be receiving ½ inch, while the side will be receiving 1.5 inch, and the ½ inch will be connected to the under bust, and also I will link it up to the 4.5 inch, the 4.5 inches. You can see that is it. So this other side will be connected to the 7 inches chest line, and it's also starting from the nipple point as well. Now I just use my curve ruler to make the curve shape, then try to blend it well, because it should not be sharp, it should be curved. So you can see the 1.5 inch, that's the 1.5, and this side is half. So ensure that it meets the armhole, ensure that the two are aligned, they are on the same pace, because if you don't do that, one can fall back and you won't have the same measurement. So the 2 inches I divided in between the two, I added it back. So that I won't be short of fabric. You know, I've used 2 inches in between, so I added it back at the side. Now at the armhole side, I measured 1 inch, and here I measured the neckline circumference. So I used 3.5 inch for the neckline, and I connected the armhole, the 1 inch. I measured 1 inch at the armhole and connected it back to where the neckline is starting from, with a slant shape. And also went ahead to cut the pattern out. I placed it on another pattern paper to trace out the back bodies. So I left 2 inches for zipper allowance. And I also marked the nipple to nipple span. So this is the neckline of the front. For the neckline of the front, I came down with, you know, it has plunging. So for the plunging, the plunging started from 2 inches after the nail length. I mean 2 inches before the nail length, sorry. 2 inches before the nail length, before the half length. don't mind me, 2 inches before the half length. Then for the neckline I measured 4 inches. After the 4 inches, I connected with this slant shape to the 2 inches below the half length, and I went ahead to cut the neckline out and also the plunging. Now I cut out the bustier as well. So this is the bustier and this is the plunging. Back to the back pattern. From the shoulder I measured 8.5 inches, and the nipple to nipple span, which is 7 divided by 2. Sorry. I wrote that out, then measure ½ inch on both sides of the nipple to nipple span. For the neckline also, I measured 1.5 inch. Then notch the zipper allowance. I also notched the under bust of the front bodies because they must align while stitching. So the 2 inches I added to the front bodies is not needed at the back, but because I used the front to cut out the back, that was why I had to measure the same measurement. So now I'll be removing the 2 inches. Now this is it's only that, so I don't need the 2 inches. I've cut them out on my sequence and the lining. So this is what we have. So this, I have like 6 pieces: the sequence, the tapeta, the lining as well. That's for the upper bodies actually. So that's the lining, the sequence, and also cut the same for the back. So for the plunging, I'm using the tool I got from the fabric. The edge of the fabric has two, so that's what I'm using for the plunging. So I added allowance to the plunging, but every other bodies I did not add any allowance to them, because I've added their own allowance. First of all, I started with the plunging. After stitching the upper side, I stitched the sides as well. So this is the bustier part. I've added my waddy and also my paper stay. I have lots of video on bustier, so if this is not clear enough, if you don't know how I added my paper stay and I stitched them, you can check my other videos. I'll drop the link in the description box. And I went ahead to stitch the plunging to the bustier. I locked it down together. So this is the part where I turned the lining and the sequence fabric together. I've joined the lining the same way I joined the sequence fabric. So I'm trying to stitch the neckline and also the sides where the plunging is stitched to. So after stitching, this is what I have, and I went ahead to iron. So this is the back piece. I've stitched the dart, and I joined both the lining and the sequence together. Now for the skirt side of it, I stitched the tappeta to the wrong side, front side, the right side of the fabric. I stitched them together. Then I connected the down bodies and the skirts and the back bodies of the upper side together and fixed my zipper. The reason why I fixed the zipper before joining both front and back together is because I don't want any bulge there. So to fix the zipper, you just chalk out the measurement you gave as the zipper allowance. So I've gone ahead to join both the front and the back bodies together. The next thing is to stitch the armhole side. So after stitching my bias tape to the armhole side, this is just to give it a neat finishing. Thank you very much for watching this video to the end. Bye.